I really enjoyed John Boyne's last book, The Heart's Invisible Furies. There it tells a story of one Cyril Avery growing up gay in Catholic Ireland. You have your unrequited love, your furtive assignations in back alleys, your gay bashing, and the AIDS epidemic. And it's all told in this wonderfully balanced story that wraps up really nicely, almost too nicely, in this perfectly wrapped up package. And I couldn't help but feel that I was being artfully manipulated throughout. Now, with his latest book, A Ladder to the Sky, Boyne gets to dial up the asshole, and clearly he's having some fun. No one writes snark better than Boyne, and some of these verbal knife fights are just downright vicious. And I know it is a bit of a cliche, but just imagine the type of tea an accomplished gay writer can throw down. It is acidic and delicious. Now, we're following the story of one Maurice Swift. When the book opens, he's a young waiter working in a hotel, and he catches the eye and fires the loins of Eric Ackerman. Now, Eric Ackerman is an aging writer that's had a late career resurgence after winning a prestigious literary prize. And over the course of the evening, Ackerman convinces Swift to join him on an international book tour, ostensibly to help him out, but more realistically, simply for Ackerman to ogle and, quite frankly, enjoy. It becomes clear that Maurice is a selfish careerist, an ambitious sociopath who will stop at nothing to realize his life's ambition. It's not enough for him to be a successful writer. He needs to be a towering literary artiste. As Picasso once said, good artists copy, great artists steal. And this is where it starts reading like a literary thriller, or more specifically, a literary thriller. And with any good thriller, half the fun is uncovering this for yourself, so I won't tell you anything else about the story. No spoilers. Just know that you're in good hands with Boyne, who knows how to write a tightly paced story that is hella fun to read, even if you have to suspend your disbelief at times. Just go with it. Turns out truth can be stranger than fiction. Boyne admits he was inspired by some of the people that he's actually run into in his almost 2 decades of working in the industry. And this is where the read suddenly takes on a timely turn. Ian Parker recently wrote a scathing profile in The New Yorker about another ruggedly handsome writer, clearly with some talent, but an almost psychopathic propensity for careerist lies. Many of you have probably already read A.J. Finn's debut thriller novel, The Woman in the Window. It was part of a 2-book, $2 million deal. It debuted at number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list. There is a movie in the works featuring Amy Adams and Gary Oldman, and translations are in the works in over 40 different foreign markets. A.J. Finn is the pseudonym for 39-year-old Dan Mallory, who is woo-woo crazy banana pants. I mean, over the course of this hit piece, we hear about how he discovered J.K. Rowling's pseudonymously written The Cuckoo's Calling and how it was published on his recommendation, how he worked closely with Tina Fey on her autobiography, and how he once whiled a summer away sexing up the horror film Final Destination. Not true. He's the type of guy that casually mentions that he's modeled for Guess jeans, runway only, and appeared on the cover of Russian Vogue, or at its cringiest, writing for his college publication about an encounter with an armed mugger who, after a witty remark, was rendered completely cowed to scuttle down some anonymous alleyway. Sure, Dan, sure. I'm pretty sure I read that in a That Happened Reddit group. So fine, he's a dick. He's the type of guy that trolls Reddits and has an Instagram filled with selfies with the post, "Might delete, IDK, I thought I looked cute." But then he turns up the dial a bit. He talks about Dan's personal essay application for the doctorate program at Oxford after a particularly lackluster master's run, explained by the fact that Dan had to go back and forth to America to take care of his ailing mother dying of breast cancer, and also look after his mentally disadvantaged brother, struggling with cystic fibrosis. His brother would die under his care, and his mother would follow soon after, never learning of the fact that Dan himself had a brain tumor the entire time. Now, Craig Rain remembers that essay application even years later. It was well written, but modestly so, without exaggeration, and it helped secure Dan a spot on the doctorate program. The funny thing is Dan's mom lives by the yacht club today, and his brother works at Wells Fargo. It's not the only time that he would paint a bleak picture of his family life. He wrote in his college publication the experience of growing up in a single-parent household with a mother dying of cancer. He conveniently forgot to mention his father, who was a Bank of America executive at the time, or working at Little Brown, not before leaving his doctorate program at Oxford midstream, but he did manage to award himself not one, but 2 PhDs, one at Oxford and another at an unnamed American university in psychology for his research in Munchausen syndrome. And a brief stint as an Oxford professor of literature. Later at work, he would tell coworkers he had an inoperable brain tumor that was going to kill him at 40, and that his parents wanted nothing to do with him, and that he was quietly making exploratory visits to an assisted death not-for-profit in Switzerland. Dan would eventually leave Little Brown under a cloud of suspicion, but he was fine. He'd land a sweet 6-figure salary over at William Morrow in New York. Now he would eventually stop coming into the office, and an email would circulate from his brother Jake about how Dan had a tumor on his spine. Operation could certainly lead to complete paralysis. He would eventually endure a 7-hour surgery and emerge only to have an allergic reaction to a change in painkillers that sent him into cardiac arrest. Now, the funny thing is when Ian Parker actually interviewed his dad didn't have any recollection of any incidents in cancer of Dan, but sure, it's one of those things that's easy enough to forget, right? The story's changed since then. Now it's a medical disorder. He's been given a bipolar diagnosis that has led to him not recalling some incidences in his past. But don't worry, he's taking electroconvulsive therapies to help deal with it. He's just doubling down. What becomes clear is he is singularly focused on money and power with his need for drama and securing other people's sympathies. He's clearly a product of the internet. Frankly, I'm surprised he doesn't have a YouTube channel already. But does this matter at all? So fine, he's got a flagrant disregard for the truth, or maybe he just lives his life based on alternate facts. I mean, that is sort of the world we live in, from the heavily curated and filtered lives we present on Instagram, the recent Jussie Smollett fiasco, and the president of the frickin' United States. We live in a world where we get to build our own realities. But, of course, fuck people who co-opt cancer to further their own careers. And I mean, how tiringly familiar. A good-looking white guy failing upwards into a 6-figure job, a lucrative book deal, and a subsequent movie signing. Maurice Swift is arguably more mustache-twirling reprehensible, but Boyne is a seasoned writer and knows what the reader is after and gives them what they need. In the meantime, Dan Mallory, all of this will probably be nary a blip in his career trajectory. The trade paperback edition of The Woman in the Window gets released this month, and does this even change your opinion? Will you still pick up the book? Anyway, let me know in the comments down below. Also, check out Beth over at Read Remarks channel, who made the connection between A Ladder in the Sky and Dan Mallory well before I did. Once again, I'm a day late and $1 short. She also draws some great comparisons to other literary works. Check it out. I have a link down below. In the meantime, I'm really enjoying a lot of the programming Netflix is putting out there that's being shot in Toronto. Watched the first season of Umbrella Academy. Pretty good. Loved the final episode. All shot in Toronto. As well as the first season of Titans, all shot in Toronto, which ended up being way better than the early set photography would have me believe. And I'm almost done, Mads Mikkelsen in Polar, which features the Minx Plaza, which is, funnily enough, the Fairmont Royal York on Front Street in Toronto. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you all have a great week of reading, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.